is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today with another commitment breakdown. This evening, Texas landed a commitment from four-star Allen edge rusher Zina Umeozulu. He picked Texas over offers from, a few dozen schools, but namely Texas A&M and OU. Texas A&M, and OU were his top three schools heading into his decision this evening. His brother also attends Texas. His brother was a four-star recruit also out of Allen, offensive lineman Neto Umeozulu. And if you've seen these commitment breakdowns before, I'm going to follow a similar format. Just want to talk about Zina's, his background, his recruitment to Texas, strengths, areas of improvement, and then his projection and fit at Texas as well. Just some background to start. So Zina's a 6'4", 225-pound edge rusher out of Allen High School in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Again, I mentioned his brother attends Texas as well as on the football team. It sounds like his twin brother, Texas Umeozulu, will also be attending Texas, potentially as a walk-on. I'll look a little bit more into that. But Zina is the 17th recruit to commit to Texas in the 2024 class. He's the second edge rusher, the first one being Duncanville five-star Colin Simmons. 247 Sports Composite team rankings. Texas ranks 15th in the nation now. I believe they're 15th or 16th in the On3 industry ranking as well. So Zina's recruitment, it was pretty straightforward from the start. He visited Texas, a dozen times in the last 2 years, including for the win over Rice last weekend. He was seen on the sidelines repping his brother's jersey, the 72 Umeozulu jersey, hanging out with a lot of other Texas commits and recruits that were visiting for the Rice game as well. I kind of figured once he was visiting Texas last weekend for the Rice game, and then he had a commitment date coming up, it was like 4 days later, Texas was very, very likely the favorite. But Texas was the longtime favorite in this recruitment. Zina's family, they like the combination of academics and athletics that you get at UT. Obviously, it makes it easier that his brother is at Texas as well, just for like travel time, family purposes, things like that. But Texas also had great relationships in this recruitment. Bo Davis and Pete Kwiatkowski were two of the leading recruiters for Texas with Umeozulu. Had great relationships with both. A difference maker, I think, in this recruitment, though, was Steve Sarkisian. He was in consistent communication with Zina. I mention this all the time, but whenever Sark is personally involved in a recruitment of a defensive prospect, that shows how much Texas wants that kid. It was the same thing with Colin Simmons. It's the same thing with Kobe Black. You can go on down the list, but I thought that it was telling for what Zina had to say about Texas when he broke down his finalists last week. He said that I feel like everything that is required for me at Texas I can do, and I believe what Sark has built and his future there. Texas is also the best of both worlds when it comes to academics and football, kind of summing up what I was talking about earlier when it came to some of the major factors in this recruitment. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the strengths that Zina brings to the table, get to know his game a little bit more. As I mentioned, Zina's a lengthy, quick, 6'4", 225-pound edge rusher out of Allen High School. I do want to mention he's been playing at linebacker this year, so if you see him on film or you see him on social media playing linebacker, that's why. Allen, they've lost some key pieces on that defense this year, and it's just kind of where the coaching staff, I think, feels he can contribute most. I'll dig a little bit more into his transition to linebacker, how that impacts his development later in the video, but I did want to mention that before talking about his skills as an edge rusher, because I do feel like that's where he fits best at the next level. So like I said, Umeozulu's got great length, good quickness off the line of scrimmage, but just overall, he's a really well-rounded athlete, large frame, big hands. I mentioned the quickness before. That quickness translated, it translates in multiple ways. His get off from the line of scrimmage is well above average for even a blue chip edge rusher. His wingspan, like I said, about 6 foot set, I believe about 6'6", 6'7", and that long stride, that quickness allows him to cover a lot of ground, but also helps him get off the line of scrimmage really, really quickly. And he's got good hands, quick at the point of attack. There's some hand placement and hand usage that I think he could improve upon, but again, I'll get into that a little bit later in this video. As an edge rusher, a lot of the things you look for, he's got that natural bend, he's got that good flexibility coming off the edge. I mentioned the hands. One of the things about his game, though, I mentioned this in the write-up I did it on the site, as always, I'll post a link to that in the description below if you want a little bit more detail on his game, but He's just got an insanely high motor, great closing speed, nonstop effort. We've mentioned that a lot about defensive linemen or edge players, if they are, getting around the football a lot. But for Zina, I gotta say, he is one of the highest effort players that Texas has in this class. That really translates with his productivity as well. He's got nearly 90 combined tackles, I think like 15 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, around 20 quarterback pressures, 3 fumble recoveries in his last 2 seasons at Allen. Don't have his updated statistics for this season yet, but I'll continue to monitor to see if those emerge here in the next few weeks. Still early in the season for Allen. I think they're 2 games in. But, Zina, again, he's someone that really you can always find him around the football. He's good at punching out the football. That ability to not only find the ball carrier and find the football, read and react, but to also be able to draw those turnovers or, again, for someone, he's just got that nose for the football, good instincts. So, he's someone that can also land on the football, knows where to be. That's tremendously valuable, especially for Texas. Obviously, they've been doing better at drawing turnovers, but still being able to land on the football, draw more turnovers, just get after the quarterback is just such a high priority for PK in this defense. Having a guy like Zina will be huge. A few other strengths that I wanted to mention for his game. I kind of talked about his straight line speed, the long stride, the good closing speed. I think in terms of his ability to set the edge, contest space, and to get off the line of scrimmage quickly as a pass rusher. 2 other things I mentioned before. He's a good read and react player, good instincts. So you combine all these factors in his game, and he's someone that I think can be a really well-rounded player at the next level. He's already shown that he's a plus run defender and obviously an impactful pass rusher. Contesting space is also a plus for him, as I mentioned a moment ago. Let's go ahead and get into some of his areas of improvement. There's really 2 areas that I pinpointed that I think he can work on before he arrives on campus next year. So the most obvious point for him to work on in the next year or 18 months or so is just adding muscle mass to his frame. About 6'4", 225 pounds. He might get around 6'5", when he tops out, but he's someone that has room to add about 20-25 pounds to his frame at least. He's got a lot of room to fill out his frame. And again, given his length, his twitchiness, his bend, you'll want to get him up around that 240, 250 mark. I'll talk more about his positional fit later, but if he's going to play edge rusher, whether it's buck or the jack position, you want him at least at around 250 pounds, maybe 240 is fine. He's got plenty of time to add weight to his frame, but you just got to get a little bit stronger. The other thing, and these kind of play into each other in a certain way, but I mentioned I think he's got a little bit of work to do with just his hand usage at the point of attack. He's got good hands. I think he's got a decent arsenal of pass rush moves, but he can play with a little bit more violence. I think the pad level approach can be tweaked a little bit. The consistency there will need some work. I think part of that is due to the change in his development since he's playing more linebacker instead of a defensive end or a true edge rusher this year at Allen High School. And so those 2 things are, I think, far and away the biggest areas of improvement for him. Most other areas of his game are pretty well refined right now. And then his projection and fit at Texas, mentioned here and there where I think he fits in his projection, but I think ultimately if he can add that 20 to 25 pounds at least in the next year or so, then the buck position, I think maybe like a smaller version of Ethan Burgess, at least in terms of length, would be fitting for him. He can play at the jack position. I think that he's still got the quickness, and I think he'll get strong enough to the point where you want him to set the edge like you would at the jack position, but I think he's got the versatility to play in either spot, but just the length and the quickness and the get off, stuff like that. He really is a high upside player that, ultimately you'll want him to be probably your biggest edge rusher, at least your lengthiest one. I think for him, it's probably going to be about 2nd or 3rd year on campus that he'll be ready to truly compete for a starting role. Once he gets up to that, once he gets that frame that's ready to compete at a Power 5 level, there's some competition that he's going to have to get some of those starting reps at the edge position. Texas, I mentioned bringing in Colin Simmons. They got a lot of young and talented edge rushers on campus right now between guys like Colton Vashik, Ethan Burke, Billy Walton's looked really good so far, Jamon Tapp, Christopher Ross looked good in the season opener. So Texas is getting a lot of depth at the edge position, and I think for Zina, he's just another quality guy that you get that can be a standout in the SEC for multiple years into the future. And then looking at what's next for Texas in the 2024 class, specifically at the edge position, there's two guys I think that you want to watch from here on out, barring any additional names that come up in senior evaluations. The first one is the Tulsa Noah Homeschool 4-star edge, Danny Okoye. Okoye, just an absolute freak of nature physically, someone that Texas has been high on all offseason. He officially visited Texas during the summer. It looks like he's trending OU right now. Him and his mom made an official visit to OU. I believe that was last weekend that really caught his attention, his family's. And I think the fact that that was the first visit that his mom took with him, or the first official, that kind of shows where OU is at in this recruitment. But Texas is going to continue to recruit Okoye. I don't know how much they'll push through the finish line if he does commit to OU and stick firm with that here soon, but he is still one of their top targets at the edge position, and again, someone that they look at very highly in this class. The other priority edge for Texas at this point, and again, this is assuming the PK and Longhorns want to take 3 edge rushers in the 2024 class. And I think if it's one of these two guys, they will, but the other one is 4-star Carrollwood Day out of Tampa, Florida, product Solomon Williams. He'll be at the Texas-Alabama game this weekend. Granted, that's in Tuscaloosa. Posted on the site today that he's looking to take an official visit to Texas this fall. Just hasn't locked in a date yet. He's really, really productive, really quick edge rusher. Similar in ways to Colin Simmons and Zina Umeozulu, just in the sense that he's just a terrorizing pass rusher, very productive player, similar to Zina in that regard. But I think Alabama's the leader in that one. Texas definitely still has a fighter's chance right now. We'll see what happens with that official visit. I believe Texas A&M and Oregon are also involved in that recruitment heading into the fall. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Like I said, big get for Texas today, landing 4-star edge rusher Zina Umeozulu, up to 17 commits now in the 2024 class, just days before the Bama game. So anyway, that's pretty much it for Andrew Miller at HookManLines.com. Hook 'em.